And we're live. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the Mojo Show, your real estate podcast where we talk about everything real estate. I'm your host, Joe Mortgage.
And I'm Cup of Joe Mortgage.
This week's episode, we're busting another mortgage myth that is out there, one that goes around, especially down here in the Texas area, that you must be a U.S. citizen in order to buy a home. A lot of people assume this, but is that really the case? Well, today we're going to break everything down for you and separate fact from fiction. But before we get to that, a little coffee talk with the Joes. Joe, I noticed you're wearing definitely a different polo today.
I do have a different polo on. I can't figure out which way I'm supposed to look in the camera, but Midland University, I am supporting them. My money is going to start going to them because today is Hunter's official signing day at Argyle High School, committing to Midland University. So we're excited. Tina and I, we get to go set it up, and just I'm very excited for him. I cannot express the words on how proud I am. But he's hard work. His GPA is over a 4.0. So it's not just because of the sports. He's also getting it because of his grades. He's wanting to go into criminal justice, law, possibly, or, maybe law enforcement. So either way that he's wanting to go with it, I'm very proud of what he's trying to accomplish and just excited about next year.
That is so cool. Congrats to Hunter. Big congrats to him. And now when does school start? Do we know?
So he has to report up there. I want to say it's like July 22nd because orientation is July 27th or 30th. Okay. So he's got to be up there a little early, make sure he's got everything ready.
Yeah.
And then, so end of July.
Okay.
It'll be right around the corner. What is that, 3 months from now?
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So his summer is going to go by fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Well, huge congrats to him. But I want to give another congrats, a huge shout out and congrats. And anyone who is listening in right now, I want you to drop comments or just drop likes or hearts or whatever. But my man, my wingman here, Joe, Cup of Joe Mortgage, celebrated last night with him and his wife, Tina, 20 years of marriage. Can you imagine that? 20 years of marriage, everybody. I'm just past 2 months, and I can't understand how 20 years she's been able to put up with this guy. This is amazing. I mean, I know we got a new pope or something, but we got to look at sainthood for her.
I do agree with you on that one. We've had a great 20 years together. We've had a lot of ups, and we've had a lot of downs, especially in our industry, right?
Yeah.
But we have two wonderful kids that have proven that they are growing up to be responsible. And I will say to anybody out there, it's not a one-way show by any means, because I think we try to do that in the first 5 years to try to set that. Oh, I'm going to be the one that's the main of the house, the head of the house, and all that stuff. And luckily, we got through the first 15 years of me doing that. The last 5 years, I've given up.
Conceded, did you?
She is a wonderful person. She accepts me for me. I accept her for her. So I'm really, really glad that we've gotten to this point in our lives of just the acceptance and true love.
Well, congratulations to both of you. I think it's a huge achievement, especially in today's society, to be able to be together for 20 years, and of course there's ups and downs. That's marriage. That's life, right?
That's right.
To still be together after 20 years, huge congratulations to both of you. So,
well, thank you. And with today, guys, we really do want comments. We want some participation. So please feel free to drop any questions, any comments down. We will recognize it. But like Joe said, today we're going over the myth of, do you have to be a U.S. citizen to buy a home? Joe, I'm going to put that out there. Everybody's seeing changes in the government right now and shutting down the border, which, we're not going to talk politics on this show. Please do not make those comments. But, a lot of things have come up about, visas and foreign nationals, and then also, non-permanent resident aliens and different things that are out there right now. So is it you have to be a U.S. citizen to buy a house.
No, you don't have to be a U.S. citizen born here in the United States to buy a home, to own a home here. Yes, as you had alluded to, there have been some changes though recently, and we'll definitely talk about those here shortly. But thankfully, in our industry, there's not, as I was explaining to a realtor the other day, there's not just conventional and FHA loans, right?
Right.
We've got a whole gamma of different types of loans out there that we'll get into in the show and go through, because it really depends upon your situation, right? As always, right? As always, it depends on your situation. As far as what your citizenship status is, do you have a work visa? Do you have a green card? I mean, what do you have? Because then we know better how to, what to position, what mortgage position best with you. So,
yeah, and we were talking about this yesterday, the differences between a permanent resident alien, like a green card and things, and then a non-permanent resident. And I probably do not explain this correctly, guys. I am not an attorney. I do not know international law.
Disclaimer down at the bottom.
Yeah, please, I'm going to explain it the way that I know it and the way that we use it from a lending perspective more than anything. But I have, and I'm not trying to offend anybody with the way that I explain these. So if there is anybody that's listening, or if you watch this recording later, please drop us a comment. Come back and tell me where, you differ in the opinion or, the facts, because I know there's a bunch of loan officers that work for us that deal with a bunch of different nationalities. So I don't want to offend anybody, but to my understanding, a green card is more, you're a permanent resident. You're just not a U.S. citizen. So you have the right to buy, to sell, and do different things, and live in the United States. And then you have your non-permanent resident aliens, which are mainly here on a school visa or a work visa. When it comes to buying, it has to be a certain type of work visa to be able to buy, as a primary home in the United States. But there's a little bit more restrictions because, those expire regularly, and you have to renew them. So with some of our financing, and we'll get into some of the products, but some of the financing, if your visa is expiring within 12 months, we have to prove that it can be renewed again, or it has been renewed. So there's a little bit extra that we have to do, but we can still be able to get it done, even if your visa is expiring in the next 12 months.
And there's a lot of different types of visas out there, whether H, F, B, Ks. I mean, there's a lot of different types out there for different purposes, whether you're an immigrant or non-immigrant, depends on the type of visa, right, for that. But even with those, we can still help those, purchase a home here, to be able to have, have a home here in the United States. But there are different residency statuses, certainly. And, but many lenders do have specific programs out there.
Yes. But there's also foreign national. I don't want to give up on that. A foreign national is you're here visiting or things like that, but you're still a citizen of of your originating country. There are ways for you to buy. You just can't buy as a primary. So, we have to look at it as a second home, vacation home, or investment property. So there are a couple of ways of doing it that way too. But I just wanted to explain the differences. Joe, you brought up many different lenders and different ways of doing it. Let's kind of talk about, the I-10 loan, because that's one that I don't think everybody understands. And they think, oh, if I just get a taxpayer ID, because that's what I-10 is. It's an individual tax
ID number.
There you go. I always mess up, is it whatever. But, kind of explain on an I-10 loan, what kind of different things that are required to be able to get that done.
So an I-10 loan actually is probably one of the easier loans to actually get. And to me, in looking at it, when I compare it to, say, a conventional FHA, it's actually easier to qualify for, because an I-10 loan, we don't run a credit report.
Well, you do run a credit report on the I-10 number to make sure that they didn't get it pulled up. But you do have to run a credit for a non-Social Security number. But most of the time, you're right. There is no credit to really look at, and that's why you're saying it's a little bit easier from a credit standpoint to get done.
Because to run a credit, you have to have a Social Security number. Right?
Yes. Well, yes. But I will explain this real quick. So we do, even for people that don't have Social Security numbers that are trying to get the I-10s or those type of loans, you do have a way that we have to try to run credit based on your name and your address to see if you opened anything out there. And we do it with a non-Social Security credit pool based on that information. So we do get a little bit of information from that. I just wanted to make sure I clarified that with some of the investors, but there are a couple of investors that don't make you pull credit at all if you don't have a Social Security number.
Right. I'm thinking of one in particular, Angel Oak.
Okay.
That they don't require that. I mean, really, what they're looking for is, the down payment, and the funds have to be in a U.S. bank account. I believe it's either 30 or 60 days. I think it's 30 or 60 days before closing.
Okay.
Those funds have to be there in that bank, and we have to show proof of that. So the bank statements, right? And then the home itself, as far as it qualifying, right? But those are the main things right there. And
so what documentation do they require for? Do they require a non-permanent resident visa? Do they require a ID of some type to show that they can buy in the States? Kind of explain that, and just so that way the users know.
And it's a great question, Joe. Each lender obviously is set up differently. So I don't remember the exact visas because there's so many different ones, right, out there. But they have a system to where you can run it through as far as what the visa is.
Okay.
Run it through to see if it qualifies, right? Which in that case, I usually just call our account executive over there and say, hey, here's the visa. Does it qualify? What do we need to do, kind of thing. And then the bank statements, and they're good to go.
And the reason I asked that question is I want to make sure everybody understands you still have to prove with these I-10 loans. There might be one investor out there or somebody that doesn't make you get the proof, but most of our loan servicers and investors, they're going to require something that shows that you have the right to be in the States before they'll do the loan. So I just want to make sure people understand this isn't like we don't have to prove that we have to be here and we can still buy a house. That is not the type of loans that we're talking about. And if those are out there, great. I don't really want to know them just because, we're trying to do it the right way and keep our industry on a professional level. So
the nice thing about it though, is that we don't have to prove income.
Right. Oh, really?
Right. You don't have to prove what they want. What the lender actually wants is to see that you have the funds in the bank.
Okay.
For the purchase of this. So they're now again. It's because I know a little bit more about how Angel Oak, in particular, one of our many lenders, as far as what they want in particular. But we don't have to, have W-2s. Which, granted, if they're in a different country, they don't have W-2s, right?
Right.
We don't need pay stubs and stuff like that. What they're looking for is the funds in the bank.
I got you. Well, and I know, if you're a foreign national and you're wanting to buy an investment property, DSCRs are one of the better ones for that because, again, not having to try to prove your income from a different country, and it's just less documentation from that standpoint. So, but let's get into, the Social Security number, the credit history, and then, the things that we kind of touched on briefly. There are the different ones you're talking about, Angel Oak, but there are regular qualifying with, you do have a Social Security number, you have actual credit. Well, we're going to do a primary purchase on those, and it is a full doc type loan. So we have to pull your credit, we have to get your income documentation, your assets. You are also open up to getting gifts funds, and those can be from other country money being sent over. We just have to have the statement in English a lot of times on the gift letter, and then the funds coming in, we need to know what bank it's coming from. Excuse me. So there is ways of getting that done with full documentation primary. and you're subject to the same pricing, same interest rates as anybody that's a U.S. citizen when you qualify that way too. So there is no risk factors that they build in because you're here on a visa versus being a U.S. citizen. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew that it's a equal playing field on that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So what about foreign national loans?
So foreign national loans, they are, like I said earlier, they're only second homes and investment properties. That's the only two ways you can buy them. And people have asked me, well, why can't you buy them as a primary? Well, you're here visiting. You're not here to be able to stay permanently or on a work visa. You're here basically just for vacation. So they allow that as a second home. Well, with a second home, you can do that full documentation where we get an appraisal, we get all your income stuff. We have to get statements converted to English if your country is not English speaking, so the bank statements can be read by the underwriters. So there's a little bit more work to them, but they're very doable. You're looking at them as like a vacation home to where you're coming in, you're staying, and then you can rent it out as a VRBO or an Airbnb while you're not here. Or you can buy straight up as an investment property, and you can do that, like I said earlier, as a DSCR. There are some investors that allow that for foreign nationals, and basically, as long as the rent that is the fair market rent for the area is cash flowing, then you don't have to actually provide any income documentation because it's not taking into account your personal debts or also your income and debt to income ratio. So I mean, the foreign national loans, I like them, but they're, people don't like that the interest rates are a little higher. Well, it's because it's that second home in the investment property.
And as well, the down payment on these is not like a standard 3.5%. I mean, we're looking at 15, 20, 25% down payments.
Yeah, it would be on a second.
15. I think it's mainly 20 and 25% down payment.
Well, on a second home, if you're doing full documentation, it's treated the same way. 10% is the minimum down payment for a second home. If you're doing investments, if you're going DSCR, your 20% is pretty much the minimum, but 25 right now with where the rates are at to make sure it's actually covering by the fair market rent. So that's one thing that people need to understand is it's not what can you rent the property for. It's what are other properties like yours renting for already that the appraiser is going to use to give you what the fair market rent is.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let me switch gears a little bit here and give a scenario. So let's say that married couple, he's military and married overseas, brings his wife over here to the United States, right?
Okay.
What could they qualify for?
Well,
she's not a U.S. citizen, right?
Yeah.
So she probably has a visa, which let me look up. I think I saw a moment ago.
So, I mean, I'm going to ask a couple of things. So you said the military VA loan kind of,
okay.
Did you, I don't know if you said veteran or military. I thought you did, but
yep, I did. So
if our veteran or our active duty qualifies for the VA eligibility, then they could do a VA loan.
Okay. Can the wife be on it?
The wife can be on it because they're married.
Okay.
So as long as she has documentation that she's legally allowed to be here, then yes, she could be on it. We have a bunch of VA gurus in our company. So if they're listening in, please comment, because if I'm wrong, I want to know. But to my understanding, to my knowledge, yes, they can be on there as long as they have documentation to prove that they have the right to be in the States, not just the marriage certificate.
Okay.
So if they don't have that documentation, then we can still do the loan for our veteran, and that person can go on title because we cannot stop them from adding them to title, but they cannot be on our loan. But we would still have to pull credit for them because those debts would have to be counted against our borrower and our military person.
Okay. Now let's say he's not military. He's not a veteran, right?
Okay.
Citizen, U.S. citizen, obviously, and she is not. and they're looking to buy a primary residence.
Okay. So
what loans could we look at for them?
Any besides VA. The reason I say that is, again, if our main borrower is a U.S. citizen or has a permanent resident alien green card, right? Then in that scenario, it's treated the same way, because as long as your spouse has a documented proof that they can be in the States, they could be on the loan if we can do it. Sometimes it doesn't make sense on conventional and FHA, because if they don't have a credit score and you do, then we want to make sure we're getting you the best deal. Well, we don't want to go with a no credit score pricing if, let's say, your credit score is in the 700s. Well, we're going to want to say, okay, she can be on title or he can be on title. It depends on which way it is. And, not put them on the loan, because now without their credit, we're now qualified for this pricing and this rate, versus if we keep them on, it's maybe a higher interest rate because they don't have any credit. So those are things that we're going to do, especially if you're dealing with this. You need to be talking to Joe or myself or any other professional that actually has been doing this for a while, because there's a bunch of different factors that come into play on why we would say, let's not keep them on or let's keep them on. Because if they're not earning income, documented income, if we're going conventional, do we really need those debts in our debt to income ratio? Do we need that credit score to hurt us? Different factors that come into play.
So obviously, with that long answer, but thank you. You busted the myth. Bottom line, you busted the myth that you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to buy a home. So thank you for going into that in-depth answer. But let me throw a twist on this, though.
Uh-oh.
Let's say that the spouse is not a permanent resident alien. Let's say that spouse is a non-permanent resident alien. Then what are we looking at?
Call your account executive and find out what the investor wants.
But they're wanting to buy a home here, primary residence here. You have one spouse is a U.S. citizen. The other is a non-permanent resident alien.
Again, I think it depends on, can you document that they're allowed to be here? Because, we have non-permanent that are allowed to get mortgages. Are there other products? Could you go with maybe the investor that does the I-10 because they'll let you do both? Yes.
Can we put them on a conventional?
I want to say yes. Am I wrong on that? I mean, you're making me question myself.
Okay.
But again, why would you if they don't have credit? Now, if they have credit and all that stuff, then they have to have the proper documentation that they can be here.
Well, here in Texas is a common law state, right? So
no, we're community property in Texas.
Community property. Apologize. So they would at least have to be on title.
Now, they don't have to be on title, but and what I say by that is, yes, they can. But even if your spouse is not on title and y'all bought it while you were married, they're still 50% owner if they're not on title or not. Now, if you own that house before, now we're going a different way.
Well,
but if you own that house before you got married, they don't automatically get 50%. That's a whole different thing. But if you're married and you buy a place and they don't put them on title, you're still 50%, 50-50 owners in that property.
Okay. So let me.
To my knowledge. I got to keep putting that disclaimer in there.
So let me guide this more towards one of the recent law changes that we've had, and that's specifically with FHA loans. Right now, FHA loans coming up pretty soon here. You will not be able to put a non-permanent resident alien on the mortgage.
Yeah, you led me down that path, and I didn't take it, Joe.
I
knew. Now I know where you wanted me to go.
I threw the line out there; it just didn't hook on. And, pull you.
Yeah, you are right. As of May 25th. So if you are trying to get a loan with 3.5% down FHA, and you are here on a visa or a green card, well, that it's only for non-permanent residents, right?
Non-permanent resident.
Right.
Yes.
So it's only for non-permanent. FHA is not allowing their loan program anymore because it's a government-supported loan. But you still have options of a conventional purchase, and on those, I believe you can do home ready, home possible if they meet the income standards. So you could possibly get a 3% down loan in that case if you qualify. So.
Now, in your opinion, and Grant, we're just talking opinions here, right? But being the FHA is the first one to go and set that bar, if you will, or draw the line in the sand. Do you see other government loans like VA and USDA, maybe even conventional down the line following suit? Do you think?
I don't know about VA just because, most of the time, if you're military and you qualify, you either have a permanent status or you are a U.S. citizen. So I don't see them doing it because mainly it would be co-borrowers and things like that. And the main borrower is the one on it. I hope FHA actually looks at it and be like, okay, well, heck, you're married to a permanent or a U.S. citizen, then maybe they'll allow that. I'm hoping they kind of look at that, but I think those are more one-offs. So that's why they're doing the big, just, none. USDA, that one I could see possibly going that route. Let's see how it turns out, and let's see if they extend. I'm hoping they extend. That is one thing in our industry. Oh, this is going to be a hard stop on this date. Well, we have 30 more days. We're going to relook at this again. so I'm hoping that happens.
It's like, look, we're going to do tariffs. Oh, wait a minute. I changed my mind, right? We'll pull it back, and just for a little bit, we'll pull it back for 30 days.
Yeah, I mean, I want some of these things to go into place and certain ones, but we've got to not just kill ourselves at the same time.
Don't shoot ourselves in the foot, so to speak. But
well, I know this one I felt like it was a little bit more difficult on the talking points than I thought it was going to be on the show, because do you have to be a U.S. citizen? No, but there's so many different angles that we could go with non-permanent resident aliens, permanent resident aliens, foreign nationals. And, I would tell you, talk to a professional. And I'm not trying to downplay anybody that's a real estate agent, but talk to a mortgage professional about the financing, because there's a lot more laws around it than just if you had cash and you want to go buy a house, because that's completely different. But if you're needing the financing, talk to one of us, talk to Joe, talk to myself. I'm going to put our email addresses up again. Email us. You can go to our websites. You can go to our YouTube channel. There's different ways that you can get a hold of us. But if you have questions on this subject, reach out, because we would love to help you. If you need a bilingual, like a Spanish speaking loan officer, we have a lot of them. We also have some other languages that are spoke, so reach out to us. And if we can't help you, we will try to get you somebody that can. And we have 300 plus loan originators over the United States that are in our network. So, we want to be able to get you to the right people.
Definitely. So if you've been thinking about purchasing a home, but you're questionable as far as your eligibility as a citizen or non-citizen of the U.S., reach out to us. Emails are below. We'd be glad to, schedule some time with you and go through it together. Next week, we are going to actually wrap up our series on busting mortgage myths. We're going to end the series with a big one that I know both of us are looking forward to. And that's the myth that you can only have one VA loan.
Just one.
So just one. They only get one. That's it. No more, no less. No, that is a big myth. And we want everyone to tune in next week to be able to see how this actually works as far as a VA loan. Having one or more, what is it going to be? You'll have to tune in and find out. And I think possibly we might have a special guest next week for this. We'll see.
We hope.
So tune in next week at our usual time, Wednesday mornings, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. thank you, everyone, by the way, for tuning in and all the likes, thumbs up and everything. We love that. If you caught only part of the episode, or perhaps you want to see some of the other myths that we've been busting for the past 6 weeks, go to our YouTube channel, the Mojo Show Real Estate Podcast on YouTube, which, by the way, just as a side note, and please, while you're there, hit the subscribe button, because we are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers, and every like, comment, share, with those out there that you think might need this information, we truly appreciate it. We really do. Just as a side note, I'm working very diligently to try to get all of our episodes up and going on Spotify. So yes, so I've got about 40 or 45 more episodes to upload on there, so that we can be streaming on Spotify as well for your podcast. If you're not able to watch us, you can listen to us while you're running or what have you. So we'll let you know when that actually does happen. We get everything up there. We'll let you know all of that. But before we close things out, Joe, any last words or nuggets of advice for our listeners?
Just thank you guys very much for listening. And again, we love to see comments and questions. So always drop them so we can answer them.
Thank you. And again, Joe, happy anniversary to you and Tina.
Thank you, sir. I'm
Joe Mortgage, and that handsome guy over there with the beard on is Cup of Joe Mortgage, and we'll see you next week. Mr.